Hey, what's up, coaches? Dave Bishop here, RTDB 2023. Last week we left you talking about defensive line play, particularly from our 4-2-5 defense. And what we want to do is we said we would pick up from where we left off and then also talk to you just a little bit about drills, progressions, and other things that we need to do to help you be better at coaching your defensive line in the specific defense. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and dive in. It's going to be a short night tonight because next week we're going to get a little bit deeper. We're going to have some cut ups for you and show you how we do what we do and why we do it. But last week, I think if you remember, we left off, we talked about why we believe you need less DL in an even front than an odd front, that we play left and right, not weak and strong. We meet people with our defensive linemen. We want to play hands on and redirect the offensive linemen. We want to play at level two, and we'll get into discussion what level two is, but we are essentially spill players, all six players inside the box or spill. And we also can game plan who lines up where and what they can do. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and continue on that, and let's talk basics right now. Let's talk stance. And there's a lot of different mindsets and philosophies on stance. Now, what I like to do is I like to have a basic balanced stance with little to no stagger. And the reason being is I want our players to be able to move left and right evenly. If you have too big of a stagger, which a lot of our kids start off that way, and we have to break them of it. They want to take a big first step, and that's not something you want if you're going to play defensive line the way that we do it. And so, what you have to be able to do is get your kids accustomed to having a balanced stance, again, with little stagger that allows them to go both ways and not have to drive too far upfield. Secondly, 3 point stance. I don't have a preference to which hand goes on the ground. A lot of coaches want to say inside hand down, and what I like to do is I just tell our kids straight up, whatever's most comfortable. And what I've learned is they don't have to think if they want a right-handed stance. They don't have to be, well, this time I'm on the right side, so I have to have this hand down. This time I'm on the left side, I got it. So rather than spend time teaching kids how to come out of different stances, get them in the stance that they're most comfortable with. And I think you're going to have the most success. Okay. There are a lot more advanced ways of doing it, but for us, that's just what I believe, and that's why we do what we do. If you've got disciplined defensive ends, and when I say discipline, that means they're able to put their eyeballs where they're supposed to be. A lot of guys want to look in the backfield, and you hear everybody talking about eye candy and everything else. Well, what you see a lot of times with stand up D ends is they're able to see in the backfield. And I teach our kids to look there before the ball is snapped. That helps them recognize plays, which we'll get into a little bit more next week, okay, or the week after. But for me, I'm always going to start my guys in 3 point stances. That way, their eyes can't see what's in the backfield. Once they're down in their stance, it doesn't matter to me. They need to worry about their key, okay? And so that's critically important for what we do. I want them to have a flat back, okay? And it's a little bit difficult to have a flat back for a lot of reasons. One, when we talk about our key, sometimes they're going to take their eyeballs and they're going to bow their neck back. And when they bow their neck back, the butt tends to drop. So we're going to work trying to get our eyeballs where they need to be without rearing our head back and without dropping our tail. So we want to talk about having a flat back. The other piece of having a flat back is for this. We try to teach our kids to utilize what they call the power pack. Power pack is the most strong area of your body that goes from your thighs to your buttocks. Okay, so your glutes and your thighs together, along with your hamstrings, working, firing off on an opponent is what's critical. So we want to have that flat back, and we want to have the use of our power pack. Next, alignment. Where do these guys align? First off, we're going to split the offensive lineman to our gap responsibility. As a coach, it's critical that you look at their alignment. Stand back, second or third level, and take a look at where your guys are. You will find that most of the time they're lined up in the gap, or they're lined up with, let's just say, their inside shoulder to the outside shoulder of the offensive lineman if they're an outside shade. So be on top of that piece. Know where their alignment is and try to get them. Man, I'd rather our guys be tighter than be in gaps and be wider. There's a lot of things that we do. So having a tight alignment and a correct alignment is critical for our success. The next thing, our defensive tackles. I'm not going to get them flexed back, but my coaches want them eating the football. For what we do and how we do it, I want our guys being 6 inches to 12 inches off the football. And the reason being is it takes away the angles of the offensive lineman and it allows us to redirect how we need to cross face of offensive linemen. So, again, get a little deep. You won't notice it very much, but sometimes you do because our kids are a little bit further than what I want them. But get them off the ball. When we're talking defensive tackles, defensive ends, man, go ahead and eat every bit of that football. But I like our defensive tackles off the line of scrimmage just a little bit. If you face teams that play a tight end, I want our defensive end in a 6 technique. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Well, first off, as a DN, we're a C gap player no matter what. So for a 5 technique, we're playing C gap. If we're a 6 technique, we're playing C gap. If we're a 7 technique, we're playing C gap. We don't get in a 9 technique because of the way our defense is designed. So we're either going to be 6 or 7. There are some times if I've got a man child, which has only happened about once. He's a man child. He was 6'3", about 275, and strong as an ox. But we moved him from defensive tackle to defensive end due to some injuries. Here's why I like a 6 technique. A lot of teams are down schemes, okay? Gap schemes, so down kicks. If you're a 6 technique, down for the tight end is not you. It's inside of you. So he's going to get the linebacker. So if he's quicker than you and he's getting an inside release, you can get your hands on him, squeeze him off, squeeze down, and then take him away from the linebacker. You might say, well, why not do it in a 7 technique? Well, to me, I'd rather make it hard on the offense because if you have a 7 technique, it's easy. He knows he's blocking the 7. And so create a little bit of question mark in the defense lineman, okay, or the offensive lineman on who they're going to block. You'd be surprised at how many times they block man on because they're expecting a 7 technique. So get your kids a lineup in a 6 technique when you have a tight end. And also if you have a wing, and when I say wing, I'm talking about the guy off the tackle, so really a slot. If you have that guy or a bam back and he's outside the tackle, teach him treat him just like he were a tight end. Okay, so you'd be a ghost on air 6 technique to a guy who's on the second level. Keys, critical. First off, what we like to do is we like to key the gap shoulder of the offensive lineman you're aligned to. Right. So if I am an outside shade on the guard, I'm going to key the outside shoulder of that guard. Now, a lot of times people like to key the foot or key the hip, and all that's great. But the one thing I do know is that those items can lie. You can't go down the down release to the second level without turning your shoulders. You can't reach without turning your shoulders. But you can have guys that have terrible footwork and screw things up. And let's be honest, if you're coached right and you're going down, are you stepping first with your inside foot or your outside foot? Most people are going to take a jab step with your inside foot, so you're going to be behind a little bit in your read. But it doesn't matter. The moment you take a down step, your shoulder's automatically moving. So we teach our guys key the shoulder of the OL and the gap you're aligned in. If you're a 6 technique, just like we talked about, if you're defensive end, in a 6 technique on the tight end, you are going to read the offensive tackle. Your reads are the same as if you were in a 5 technique. Tackle blocks down, you're going to fill up and be prepared to go ahead and take on a puller from somewhere. Now, the piece of that that's interesting is this. So if you get a down block, you can fill it up. Okay. If you get a reach block, the key here is you don't have to worry about the tight end reaching you, because you're a C gap player. So if you're a 7 technique, you're already reached. You're in the C gap. If you're a 6 technique and that tight end's reaching you, you can get hands on him while you're watching your tackle reach. And now you're holding the tight end up and you're not getting reached by the tackle. So the key is if you get a reach block from the tackle, that's the guy you do not want to reach you. It's not the tight end. Okay. Hands and feet. Hands and feet. So we're going to talk about these two things quickly. Hands and feet. First off, with our hands, we're going to attack half a man. So I want one hand on the shoulder, punching, one hand in the sternum, punching. Now, as we get to the shoulder, I also want to be able to get to the outside grab cloth, okay? And if he's going away, I want to try to get to the inside. So I'm sternum and I'm punching and I'm pushing, okay? So if you get a down block, you're going to have your hands in the same places if you get a reach block. So our goal, get a hand on the shoulder, get a hand in the sternum. Our feet are solid in the ground, okay? Again, balanced stance. When that ball snapped, I do not want to step. Now, for some of you, you're like, what do you mean you don't want to step? I want to take my hands. I love the terminology of my eyes are in my hands. So my hands go to my key. And as my hands go to my key, my 2 feet are driving into the ground and pushing me into the direction of my hands, which is where my key is. Okay. And then I also want to, as we say, launch to the key. If you step with your feet first and then bring your hands, you're going to mess up quite often. Because if you're stepping with your inside foot and he's giving you a reach block, you're pretty much giving him the opportunity to get you now. So work no steps. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit as we talk about drills. Drill progression. Now, today we're going to be real simple and we're going to finish up with our drill progression. The first drills I teach our kids, other than, hey, we're going to teach alignment, okay? And so we're going to give our calls for us, over fronts, under fronts, but we're not going to call them that. We may call it shade, and we're going to call it shade week. We're going to call it slide. Depends on what we're doing, okay? But our drill progression beyond alignment is this. First, we start with a 6-point explosion. And so what we're doing is we'll have an offense alignment with his hands on his hip or his hands on his thighs. And we're going to line up our defense alignment in a left shade or a right shade. I know you guys aren't going to like this, but I'm going to go ahead and say hit. Okay. And I'll tell you why here in a little bit. We're going to go ahead and get 3 reps on the left, 3 reps on the right. We'll switch. Then we're going to go with a 3-point explosion. So we're going to get in a 3-point stance and we're going to explode with our hands to the appropriate place. There are no steps. So he's going to come through his hips and he's going to explode. Shoulder pad, sternum, no steps. He's going to reach and he's going to be laid out almost horizontal. We want our hands above our eyes. But what has to happen is you got to have a guy across from you that does what you're supposed to do. So when we say hit, that offensive lineman has to step into the defender and stay low and be braced because we don't want the defensive lineman to fall on the ground. Okay, he's stepping and he's learning. So we'll do that on the left side. We'll do that on the right side. Then we'll progress to a 3-point explosion. After we've done that, we'll bring our feet up underneath us and give us a good base. Okay. Those are the key drills that we use to start. Now, there are going to be things that we do later that we'll talk about next week and how we progress from this to some other things, how we progress to reading block and how we go ahead and deal with how we handle taking on offensive linemen that pull, reach blocks, you name it. So we're going to teach our kids from our keys, and we're going to teach sometimes just one block a day. So it might be down, 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 down. We'll go left side, right side, and so on. So we'll talk about that next week. Again, if you haven't taken time, go to the channel. Check out our 4-2-5 cut-ups versus Cherokee Bluff. Probably one of the best games that we have when it comes to doing things the right way over and over and over again. There's times where we're going to make a lot of mistakes, but in this game, we made very few mistakes against Cherokee Bluff. So spend some time, look at the drills, talk about it. Shoot me text messages and emails. And then also, hey, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. We want to get our subscription up to about 40 or 50% of our viewers. Okay, 40, 50% of our viewers subscribing because, again, we're going to start doing some things with our channel as we progress that only subscribers will be able to get a hold of. So, hey, until next time, we're going to pick up with defensive line today and moving forward. Hey, today we're going to talk about stopping the run the damn ball. All right. That's our focus here for the next few weeks. Till then, RTDB.